Hey guys, welcome to the Off Duty podcast, the one-stop shop where we talk love, work, pleasure, and how we are going to create the lives that we desire.
So, grab a beverage, get cozy, and let's get ready for today's conversation. Hi, Penny.
Hi, Daniela.
Hi, Penina.
Hi, how are you?
I'm okay, thank you. How are you?
I am happy that it's almost Friday.
Yeah. Silver lining.
A win is a win.
A win is a win.
in this cozy lives.
It's a lot. It's been doing a lot recently, I can't lie.
Is everyone fighting for their life?
Hey,
Asking for a friend.
Yeah, I haven't had a mentee be, although I feel very close. I feel like if I have this mentee be that's coming,
it'll be the mentee bees of all mentee bees.
It'll be the mentee be to end all of them, folks.
You know how yesterday we were talking about how people will go years without crying?
Hell.
Listen, everyone's living different realities.
Listen, it's a lot, but I'm like you, grateful that hallelujah, it's Friday again. I was literally telling you earlier, right? On Monday, I could not even fathom this moment. I was just like, this week is never gonna end. I was just not seeing it, but I thank God. I thank my bed for having me every night.
Somebody's gotta hold it together.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm coughing.
Speaking of, right, I'm painfully single.
By the way, disclaimer. Somebody help a girl, please. Speaking of single, you know, I was gonna tell. You know when you were gonna ask me about how my week was?
Yeah.
Fine, I'll just skip it. So I had a marriage proposal.
I'm screaming. Do I have problems like you, big boy?
Screaming. I don't want marriage proposal. I want people to be asking me, would you like £10,000 delivered into your account? And if people are like, oh, Penny's just really about money, I really am. Like,
period.
Let's not get it twisted. Let's be Pacific. That's what I want. Mm-hmm. Anyway, got a marriage proposal. Yeah. Well, got an auntie in my DMs. It was like, oh, hi Penny, are you single? I have a son of mine who's available. And I was just like, Like Daniela, I'm also single. But I am not looking. Or am I? I'm not looking because they say when you go looking for it, you're not going to find it. So I'm like doing opposite psychology on it.
That'll do the trick. That'll do it.
So I had this guy. So I was just like, why not? Let me see him. What's the worst that can happen? Anyway, saw this person and we're just two different people.
Just on two different paths.
Two different paths.
Just do not join.
Do you know parallel lines? You know those parallel lines I told you about? That's what it was. So I was like, you live in a whole country where there's so many women. Why are you going to try and get with a woman who's abroad? Do you know what I mean?
Red flags.
Honestly, I was just like, this just makes no sense.
Yeah.
This makes no sense.
Plus, you want hugs. And you want cuddles.
Also, I've done a long distance relationship and been there, tried it.
Not for me.
No, thank you. I feel like I'm ready to have like my partner close to hand. You know, like speed dial and they'll come in. Not on a bike though.
Yeah.
In a car.
I want to be texting, I'm so hungry, and they're showing up to the door with food.
But you know, we're going to talk about dating, but dating in this climate.
This cozy lives.
Not even the cozy lives. But black British men, they're literally just They're a category of their own.
Screaming.
They really are. But anyway,
how's your week been?
my week has been. I feel like I'm due a float session. So if you don't know what a float session is, it's basically a sensory deprivation tank where you go and just lie, and it's full of salt. Did I say it's full of salt? Wow, it's been a long week, y'all. And you just float. They usually call it like flotation. So I was doing that. I did that last year, but because of the cost of living crisis, just not been able to. Been busy, but my whole body needs it. My nervous system, you know, the tension in my joints. Anyway, long day, but needs must.
Needs bloody must. I have me and you, dear listeners, Penny and I.
Penny and my mind is just.
Penny and I are training for a half marathon.
I'm screaming. I'm so dead. Can you hear the excitement?
Yeah, so that's what we've been trying to do.
Heavy in the trying. God loves a tryer.
God loves a tryer, but I feel like that second run was really good. Yeah, so that's something that's new, isn't it? We're doing running. It's actually quite nice doing the runs. I know we've only been a few times, but I kind of like it. Like, we end up talking. It's just funny.
I enjoy it.
It's a nice way to like end the day.
I love being active. I love it. And I was also out with one of my other friend today, so it's nice. Getting it in with everybody. Anyway, what's your love note?
Oh no, we've not asked you what's new.
Still single, still broke.
Screaming. That's not you.
Oh, I've submitted my final assignments for uni.
Clap.
I just got my dissertation to go. Home run is the hardest. Like, yeah. I am burnt to a crisp. And not from the sun, but from, unfortunately, academia.
Whoa.
You know?
The institution?
Girl. So, that's exiting. We're talking a lot about endings. Yikes. Anyway. What's your love note?
So my love note is definitely inspired by the theme of the episode today. It's a poem by someone called Merritt Malloy. It's the poem is called Epitaph. I actually heard this poem in House, The Haunting of Blind Manor. The creators of those shows, they made another show called, I'm sure it's called Midnight Club, and it's about a group of teenagers who have been given like a terminal illness, like a terminal illness diagnosis, like they're going to die. Like together, like just kind of helping each other through, and they have this little like ritual, like the kind of, there's a storyline about this, like kind of, is it supernatural, are they all hallucinating thing that's happening, but also there's the going through the story of like them actually coming to terms with their like diagnosis and accepting like death is coming and like not doing things that are a little bit like cultish, basically, in an attempt to live. And at the acceptance, when one of the girls accepted, who was like the biggest kind of like, I'm gonna get better, I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna get better, she was at the point where at her journey where she kind of accepted and was now like kind of making plans for her death. It's not like she had like an estate to manage or something like that, but like she has some own things, right? She's a person. And she asked her foster father to read this poem at her funeral, and this is the poem. That was a long winding road, but we got there in
I'm
the
so
end.
dead.
I feel like we needed context. Anyway, this is the poem, and I just thought it was really beautiful when I first heard it.
Mhm.
Okay, so this is Epitaph by Merritt Malloy. When I die, give what's left of me away to children and old men that wait to die. And if you need to cry, cry for your brother walking the street beside you. And when you need me, put your arms around anyone and give them what you need to give to me. I want to leave you something better than words or sounds. Look for me in the people I've known or loved, and if you cannot give me away, at least let me live on in your eyes and not your mind. You can love you can love me most by letting hands touch hands, by letting bodies touch bodies, and by letting go of children that need to be free. Love doesn't die, people do. So when all that's left of me is love, give me away.
Wow, that's beautiful. That is so beautiful.
So yeah, when we decided to do this episode, which I guess we decided a long time ago actually, I thought of this poem because I kind of just finished it recently, and I thought it was fitting.
Oh, that is so beautiful.
I think so too. It was a really beautiful, it was a really somber show. Like, I remember feeling really sad after it. But anyway, what's your love note for this week?
My love note for this week comes from the Muslim holy book, the Quran. And basically it says, to God we belong, and to God we shall return. If we truly believe that we will return to God and remind ourselves of this every time there is hardship, then this statement should serve as an underscore that during hardship we are not absolved of moral responsibility and accountability. I find it really beautiful knowing that, like, as human beings we've lost touch of what I've seen is people have lost touch of, like, the fact that there's, like, a higher power. And I think humans believe that we are so mighty, and I feel like because of that belief, that also contributes to our neurosis a little bit. And knowing that, for me personally, like, I believe in God, but knowing that it's God that we're returning to, and it's God that, it's basically, some battles aren't ever for you. Some things, like, in this life aren't for you, and that's why, like, if we relate it back to death, which is the topic today, you shouldn't fear death, because that's not for you to worry about, and it's always been part of life. And you're going back to a higher power, you're going back to something so that you can't even, like...
Yeah. Like this idea of the source.
Yeah, and so... Yeah.
I also believe in God. And personally, I really find the idea that there isn't some, like, higher power or a god or some sort of creator, higher being, whatever term you want to call it. I find that really, really lonely. And I think, and I don't know, perhaps it's because I don't have, like, some understanding of some things, but it feels like what would be the connection? Like, where I just feel completely disconnected from everything.
That's interesting.
Because I feel like perhaps that this idea of a high being is intrinsically, for me, connected to my connection with other people as well. And the idea of, I don't know, like spirit, all of that is very much tied for me to like God. And so, yeah. The end.
The end.
Again.
The end. I think when I think of like God as a higher power, it's not to say that it's somebody who I'm fearing.
No.
That's not my personal relationship with God, and we all have
No.
unique relationships and understanding of God, and God shows up so differently to each of us, so
Sure.
that's a-okay.
Sure.
So today, dear listeners,
Dear listeners.
we are coming from Netflix and bringing it all back down to earth. And we're talking about death. And we are going to explore this topic from like both like a self-love idea of death and also just death in general, really, and how we relate to it and what our perceptions are of the of the thing. Because I feel like within our own, like our culture anyway, death is like a taboo subject. So yeah.
Yeah. I kind of imagine it as this sort of dark, smelly thing that no one wants to talk about. Like it's almost like linked to the devil or something, and there's no. Yeah, like it's just.
Which is insane. I think growing up in a Western society and being a nurse, there's actually like different versions of death that I've kind of like come across.
Yeah.
So in terms of like death in uni as a nurse, we had this module which is very brief, and I guess like you need to go further on and do extra studies about it.
Yeah.
They were talking about how ultimately the way, you know how we have like baby showers and things, that's the same way we should approach death. We should it should be so normalized that we're preparing for it like we're having a death shower. Yet we don't, which is so weird, because ultimately, like, one thing that is given, that is for certain, is that we're all gonna die. And it's just so weird how we navigate it and how we go around it. My own like personal experience of death. So my first experience of death was when my grandfather passed away. And I remember like going back to Uganda and getting to the airport and my granddad wasn't there, and that was just something which was just never happened.
Yeah.
I say this as though I used to go to Uganda like every single day, but I got to the airport and he wasn't there, and even my mum immediately, she knew there was just something that was off.
Yeah.
And it's so crazy how like the universe, or how God, just the whole, how the world works, because we traveled like as a whole family, and my granddad had like organized like a meal or like a prayer of some kind on the Sunday or something.
Yeah.
Anyway, landed on that day. He was extremely sick. Rushed to hospital in the middle of the night. We were called in the middle of the night. They're like, listen, he's not going to make it through the night. You guys need to come and like say your final goodbyes. And I remember like, this was such a pivotal moment for me as well, like between my relationship with God. Because it was the first time I ever experienced like I ever came face to face with death. And I just remember like being there and asking God like, listen. I was just like, do you know what? Do you know what, you just ask, you just beg to not take this person away. Anyway, my grandfather passed away, and then on the Sunday, his body was back home, the prayers was there. It was as though he prepared for his own death, and that was insane.
Yeah.
And it was so crazy, and honestly, like, my grandfather, most incredible human ever.
Yeah.
And then coming back to this, the way in which like death has kind of like changed. I've been reading this book, and it basically taught me about all these different ways in which death exists around us. And I feel like in the last few months when I've been going through whatever I've been going through, there's been like a death of like the neonatal nurse that was Penny, and all the dreams and everything that came with that. And I think I've just been mourning it this whole time. And it's, you know, it's crazy. I had a dream about my granddad after this whole thing, and crazy, absolutely insane. And I never dream about my granddad. Like, I never, ever, ever dream about my granddad. And it just goes to show, like, I'm in the process of, like, a death and rebirth of a new version of me. And I think it's that thing that we're talking about, how life is hard, and just surrendering to all these things that happen to you and realizing that actually there's so many different deaths that happen, and there's so many different ways that death happens within life.
I agree with that. I think that's definitely like something that I guess has been part of my journey in terms of like understanding death. Like when I was younger, I used to think about death a lot, in the sense that I used to be really scared of it.
What were you scared about? Were you scared about the actual die? Or what was it that you were scared of?
At first, I think I can only really imagine that I was really scared of like nothingness, of like non-existence, which is interesting because I've always believed in God, obviously, which means that there will be nothingness. But then to some extent, let me know. I was about to get into it anyway. So the idea of like nothing being conscious, right? And I think perhaps I'm veering into, and there's like loads of different feelings. Like there's never one thing is not always the case, but anyway, I think that I am more aligned to the sort of thinking about death, that it's like something that's really beautiful, and
oh my gosh, yes,
something that, because realistically death is not without rebirth. Like those two things coexist together, because balance, and like that's just how things exist. And I think there's a lot of beauty in knowing that something is not like forever, it's not permanent. You're less likely to try and take advantage of it, or and in the same way we kind of like that. I feel like that's why perhaps we feel an urgency to like get to some part of it anyway, to get to like the bit that's good. It's like, oh, let's like hurry this along because I want to get to the bit that's good, because like I don't have forever, you know. And I think it's like a way that we can like really appreciate and value like moments and like time with each other, because like time is essentially like the only real valuable thing that we have. And I whenever I speak to my friend, well, not whenever, but like I've said this to my friend a few times about how like I think it's really, 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 I find this so beautiful that like we have such limited time, and we choose to spend it on the phone with our mum, or with you. Like I'm spending time speaking to you right now, and or like being near another person. And I think that is just it's such a beautiful like soft thing like that humans do. It's like we don't have a lot of time, and like the minimal amount of time we have, that's the only thing we have really of value, and we are choosing to spend it with like another person. I think that's really beautiful.
Yeah. And you know what I find it really like sinister that Western society has been designed so intricately that it sucks the life out of you, and it drains you, and so you don't have the it kind of distracts you from the fact that you have a limited amount of time. And it's not even I guess to an extent there is the we take things for granted, but also at the same time, I think at the age that we're at, I'm learning that as an adult, you have your time is literally not your own. It doesn't belong to you.
No, it doesn't.
And
you have to ask for it through annual leave. And they say no.
And when it comes to like, so by the time it gets to when you do have your free time, you're unable to you're not able to show up and be present
Yeah.
Because, okay, yeah, you can go and shop and spend time with people, but, like, you're not present because you're literally, like, your mind's elsewhere. And also, we forget that, like, we as young people kind of assume that death is something that we've attached death to old. We were saying this the other day, how we are the generation of, like, this isn't serving me, I'm not doing this. And I'm glad that we're that generation, because we value and we understand how important our time is. I don't know how to say it, I've kind of lost track, but yeah.
I agree with that. I'd agree with especially the fact that I think we are in a position, thank God, to, like, all the people that, like, fought and did all the stuff for the rights and all that kind of jazz.
I'm screaming. Shout out to you, MLK, Nelson Mandela. You are the...
Literally, all these, like, freedom fighter, like, the, like, freedom fighting people who have been out protesting, like, they are the reasons that we are able to kind of, like, even get to this point that we're able to, like, they've taken, like, they had a lot of stuff in their way, and one by one, battle by battle, like, they managed to, like, remove certain things, and, like, I think I love that we're also, to your point, at a stage that we can see a lot clearer than, like, some people have done in the past, and we're able to kind of see the real meaning, or what we believe to be the real meaning of life, and, like, to pursue that aggressively.
Yeah. Heavy on that.
So yeah, I'm also quite proud that we're like, no.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I'm gonna you say no to my annual leave, I take it sick anyway.
I'm so dead. I'm so dead. She doesn't do that.
I don't. I'm too
She's
nervous.
shy. She's one of those people that will not call in sick for 5 years straight.
I rebuke it.
God forbid.
No, yeah.
But also, like, another thing, death is part of life. If somebody is not compatible with life, and I get that, okay, we should do what we can. However, like, there's some of the things that we're doing were actually just so inhumane. And that's just horrible. Because it's like, we're not, this whole idea of immortality, and you know when they're like, oh yeah, we've got all these new treatments.
God, yeah.
Yes, good. But at the same time, we're not supposed to live forever. We're supposed to.
Yeah.
So jarring.
And I think it's also interesting how, not interesting, but in addition, I guess, at the same time, there's also other cultures. Like, I don't obviously know a lot. For example, Rob, bro.
So dead. For example, so the different cultures.
So it's also interesting to see, like, how other cultures can sometimes, like, celebrate death instead, right? So in the West, it's very much, like, not talked about. It's pretty bleak. Like, it's mourning. Bro, how... Dear listeners, please let us know what you think about cremation.
What do you think about cremation? Cremation.
Is that what it's called? Cremation?
Yeah.
I just think it's so, like, the way that it's done, it's so capitalist.
Is it giving capitalism?
It's giving the cold, hard.
You're saying you don't want to be a tree
capitalism.
and scattered across the Atlantic?
But that's not how they do it, though. It's like, just, it's done so there's space.
Yikes.
Do you know what I mean? There's not enough space to bury people.
I know, like, an average funeral is so expensive.
And it's so expensive.
Yikes.
Like, if it was part of the culture, like, there's a whole thing, like, they burn the body, like, as part of, like,
and
the
put you
ritual
in a river,
of it. Yeah.
And you flow away.
Or something. I don't know. Not just, like, put in, like, this, like, metal box where you're, like, just burnt. It feels really cold. And just, like, really, like, disconnected. Like, you're just completely alone. Like,
speaking of, like, the culture of death, like, I feel, so when we talk about, like, the Western culture, yikes. When we talk about Western culture, so, like, there's cremation, and I don't think within our culture, cremation is not something, like, that's normal within our own culture. From the little that I know about the Baganda tribe, where me and Danni are from, you usually go and you get buried. If you're an unmarried white girl, you are married. Well, you are buried on your in your dad's village. And if you are married, you get buried at your husband's village. But when we talk about like the diaspora, can we please all get life insurance? Can we please start talking about death? Because every single time death happens, why is it that we're now scurrying around to
Everyone's surprised.
Why are we all surprised? Excuse me, please. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because the thing is, to be fair, I'm making a lot of noise for somebody who also doesn't have a plan, but we're in a cost of living crisis.
We're all learning is linear. It's not linear.
Learning is not linear. And also, once my money's patterned, I am definitely going to be working on it quick. But I just feel like it's so... This is going to sound really harsh, but I just think it's selfish. Because the thing is, as I was saying, death is part of life. And if you know that in your heart you want to be buried back home, you need to have those steps in place. You need to talk to your family members about it. You need to talk to your children about it. If you can't afford it, make sure that your children are helping you raise so that you can have your dying wish as that. Yeah. Don't wait until a rainy day and then people are like scurrying to get you home. And then what happens when you don't get home? And then your spirit is out here wandering.
Personally, don't bury me in England.
I'm screaming.
That's all I'm saying. Don't bury me in Europe.
I'm screaming. I would like to get buried next to my granddad, but I know that's not something that can happen. To be fair, I'd be a married babe, so don't need to worry about it. No, I probably.
You're sending me.
But it's crazy. There's so many different things within our culture, which I think it creates such a confusing. It's so confusing being British Ugandan. It creates a lot of challenges. It's great. Don't get me wrong, but
it's a journey.
It is definitely a journey.
Yeah.
Anywho.
So I feel like I talked about this already, but are you scared of dying?
Honestly, no.
Bring it on.
California. I'm thinking of the wrong song.
Country road.
That won't take me home. I hope our mothers listen to this episode because it's comical. It's funny. If I do say so myself. Honestly, when I think of death, I think it's reuniting with like all my ancestors. Like my idea of death is to see everybody again. Personally, I don't know. Like you believe what you believe, but mine, I don't think it's a scary thing. I think there's so much like freedom, and there's just like you said, there's so much beauty in knowing that there's an end. Do you know what I mean?
And relief? ?
How about you?
Like I said earlier, I don't think scared is the word really that I could use for it. I don't like. I wouldn't say like I welcome it. Do you know what I mean? I don't like welcome it at the moment, but I feel like if it happened...
I mean this to say, as you were saying, in Ghanaian culture, they literally don't wear dark colours. They will throw a party to celebrate the life that somebody has lived. Yeah. And that brings us on nicely. That's a good segue, as Danny would say. Into how are you preparing for your death, or what do you envision?
Okay, firstly, right now, realistically, the only way I'm preparing for death is by trying to live.
Oh, that's wow. Hang it there. Hang it there.
But I hope to sort of set up those things, like in terms of financially, make those kind of like plans to, just make sure that I honoured in the way that I want to be honoured, because I think ultimately that's.
What I'm hearing is you want us to come to your funeral in pum-pum shorts.
I'm screaming. Absolutely. And so in terms of like how I want it to look,
I'm screaming. If I die young. Anyway. In
terms of my funeral, like we've talked about, I would love it to be a celebration. I think the whole gathering of like the poem was saying is like it's all about love and like sharing love and sharing experiences. And I think hopefully I would have lived a life that I've experienced enough to fill me, and that I've touched other people as well. I feel like all I think life is like our experiences with other people. And I'm hoping a lot of those are great.
Fingers crossed.
Well, that's to be
so far so good.
Some dancing, some good food, girl. It's gotta be good food.
That good Chinese shop there, they are the caterers.
I want that specific food. I want some Ugandan food. You know, like celebration food.
Oh.
I'm gonna need people to have. Everyone's gonna have appetizers of
not canapes.
No, what is it now?
Mandazi.
No.
Chapati.
Grasshoppers.
I'm screaming.
I'm gonna need.
How about if
everyone.
you're vegetarian? Grass.
Some lemongrass tea. Yeah, I just want that to be because food. Food, music. I'm someone who, honestly, like most of the time, I will have something playing, and most of the time it's music. I love so many.
You better make that playlist now,
girl. I have so many playlists. The people, no me no guys segued, but good, beautiful music. I want so much music. I want so much dancing, all of that. Celebration, basically.
Yeah,
that's it. Yeah. How does it look for you? How does the end look for you?
The ending is definitely in Uganda, not here, to be Pacific.
Period.
So that spirit knows, so that God knows, so that we're all on the same page. I definitely feel like, I think similar to my wedding, I literally don't want a lot of people. I want the people who I feel loved by, and people who I love. Like I love humans. I definitely want it to be a big, massive celebration. But I feel like it would be really fulfilling knowing that it's with the people who have carried me through life. And also I really want to be buried in like in a sheet, like a linen sheet, not in a coffin. And I just want loads of flowers on my grave.
That'd be pretty.
Maybe plant a tree as well. I don't mind.
It.
What?
Since you're there.
Plant a mango tree and an avocado tree. I think the next part for me right now is start talking. Like I've had these conversations with my parents, but I need to start having these conversations with my brothers. Because as much as like really young, this thing can just happen. It can literally just happen at any point. And so it's knowing that this is what I've got for you, this is what I don't have for you, this is what I'd like.
Honestly, like if my brother wants my beats, he can have them.
Screaming.
That's all I got.
I'm screaming. And also I feel like I'd really like to be buried with all my photos. I'd want them to be printed and buried with me. all 40,000 of them.
Screaming.
Honestly.
I thought you didn't want a coffin.
Huh?
I thought you didn't want a coffin.
Maybe you could get Listen, my mom, for my 25th birthday, she got me a blanket with pictures of me on it.
Bless her. She's so sweet.
So you can print all my pictures and put that on the linen sheet and put me down with it. But I just want peace. I hope that we all make it to old age together, and if we don't, that's okay, because I think it's just nice that we experience people for the duration that we experience them, and that's fine.
Okay. What do I want to leave with? I want to leave them with... What I'll say is that kind of like, I guess, as well as like the heartache that can come with death, there's also a lot of beauty there, and I think really understanding that might just help us out a little.
Yeah.
What about you?
I think that whole concept of like throwing a death shower, maybe not in that particular way, but have those really uncomfortable conversations. Do more research about it, because the more you know, I feel like the less you fear something. Just have those conversations, because they're so important, and they will save you so much grief in the long run.
I think preparing for it also helps. It's like another loving thing to do for
so
the
loving,
people that you love, even after you're not physically there anymore.
Because you know how there's people who, I think, they will send like flowers. Say they will pay for this thing where they send flowers to somebody for like the next however many years, and I just think like we have the capacity and the opportunity to do these things, and it's like there's an element of ignorance that comes into play by just not accepting that death is part of life. And so we can't actually embrace and actually take advantage of all the great things and services that actually exist to alleviate about those burdens that come with transitioning.
That actually is like what I understand death doulas to be, basically. It's like they, like the idea of birth doulas. They help like the mother and the family like kind of prepare for the baby and educate them and stuff like that, and advocate for them to some extent, like doing birth and stuff. Like that's the same thing, but for like someone who's dying and for their death. I don't really know that much about death doulas, but I find that work so human, and I know I keep saying this word, but it feels like connection.
Do you know that idea of like, say, communism, the concept of communism, and if there were all like different roles that we could be assigned to, these are some of the things that would exist, because there's roles within society that should be filled, and if society isn't being driven by money and all those things, we're able to fill the different roles that are needed to create a wholesome life experience, human experience.
I think so. Anyway, on that very last note for real this time.
That very, very last and final note.
What action point to saving the world do we have from you this week?
From me, it's a whole lot of writing again. You should write your eulogy and send it to at least 5 people so that they have a version of it. Because I think, again, when you prepare properly, like if you were to write if you're able to write something in present moment, you have the power to literally you have the power to change the whole experience of a person's grief journey. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's how much
Preparation can do.
that's how much preparation can do, because it could be the difference between somebody grieving for the next 10 years and 5 years. So write a eulogy, send it to either your closest friends. If you're really close to your parents, send it to your closest parent, and also that they have it. But can't tell that to a Ugandan parent. They'll be like, why are you... What's your lazy person's guide, Danni?
I just want to say one last thing. I think
not her who said the final point.
No, to your point about your action point. At first when you said that, I was like, eulogy? What? But I think thinking about the idea of like what is actually accessible, let's say, in terms of like sometimes people don't even have money to eat.
Yeah.
So I think there's different ways you can be prepared, and part of that is financial, but part of that is also like others things, and actually that segues really well into the action point that I wanted to give today, which was just tell the people around you, tell the people that you love them, and
plant those seeds.
Exactly. And if you're thinking about someone, text them. Like, I think anyway, that's your business.
And that's the thing, like with our lazy person's guide to saving the world, it's supposed to be simple things which they do save the world, because getting like a random text from somebody saying that they love you, that literally just adds an extra pep to your step, and
it saves someone else as well.
It's 100%.
You don't know these days, especially with how difficult life is, and I think because of my work, the work I do as well, like people are suffering like a lot, and you don't know what that little message that took you like 5 seconds in passing, maybe you didn't even really realize or deep it to the weight that it actually held for someone else. And I think as someone as well who has struggled speaking about her feelings, and even when I love someone, and in any capacity anyway, I think that's also a challenge for me as well, because like whilst I am getting better at it, it's still something that I can definitely do more for the people that I love.
And you know how you were saying about how like death is something that's expensive. There are so many ways we can prepare that you can make it as simple and as complex as you want, really, because ultimately we don't have money. Like, well, we are going to have money. Our money's just not here yet. But there are so many like accessible ways in which you can do these things that are for life, really, isn't it? Like
knowledge in itself is already like so much like further ahead than before. Like knowing what is that you would like to do, and so when you get those resources, we're able to actually take those steps, because we know what steps to take, or we've planned at least to some point. But
so use it wisely. Use it wisely.
As well.
Use it wisely.
Sure. But
to end a heavy podcast episode, I hope you guys know that life is so beautiful. And if you are going through it right now, we are sending you virtual hugs. Lots of love.
All the love.
Just know that you are very much valued. Your light, your energy is very much it's not taken for granted. It's necessary. It's necessary for the survival of the human race, and that's how important you are. If anybody makes you feel like you're not important,
tell my man, shut up.
That part. What she said.
And on that note, have a fabulous week.
our socials.
And on that note,
we are coming back real quick.
Please do let us know any of your thoughts, the thoughts that you've had, any reflections that you might have.
And also, how does your own culture like navigate death? Like, enlighten us, enlighten our listeners, because
we're all trying to learn.
We're all trying to learn.
And you can do that on our socials. On Instagram and Twitter, it's at the offdutypod. Our Gmail is offdutypodsubmissions@gmail.com. And we shall catch you on the flip side.
We shall catch you on the flip side. Mwah.